to In Depth with Academia. Hey, I'm Richard Price of academia.edu, and you're joining today. As always, we're into fresh scholarship, taking it apart, turning it over, and hopefully finding some insights that really matter for all of us, not just people hiding in university libraries. Remember, I'm here to present the work, not advocate for it. Just what the authors are saying so you can decide for yourself what you think. So, today's episode centres on a paper by Annie Wang, and it's got a pretty intriguing title. Ready for this? It's called Intergenerational Int and Symbolicition in the I Ching, a cross-cultural interdisciplinary case study. If that sounds like a lot, it is. But trust me, the core question here is fascinating. It boils down to, how is intuitive knowledge, those gut feelings, that sense of something's up, passed down within families? And how does it interact with formal learning, especially through something as complex and as I Ching? Why this matter? Well, think about it. So much of what we pick up from our families, not just facts, but ways of knowing. Annie Wang is exploring whether intuition, this sort of deep, sometimes subconscious perception, can be as a cognitive capacity passed and shaped by history, culture, symbols, not just a mystical thing then, but something rooted in lived experience and tradition. If you're ever wondered where your own comes from, or how your culture shapes how you know things, this is a ride taking. The focus is on, 3 generations of women, but really 2 main figures. First, the so-called Northeast aunt, a scholar in China who's deeply tied to Manchu and Hmong traditions, and then across the author's mother, now in the United States, who uses a much more, let's say, embodied intuition. Here's what's wild, they so differently. Aunt is an intellectual. She writes best-selling books on the I Ching, uses poetic, symbolic language. There's even about her wrying invisible trigrams on her back, which I hear that I picture someone with a superhero cape full of mysterious symbols. Anyway, on the other hand, you've got the author's mother, who's not using all this formal language. She just perceives things directly, often through simple touch, like holding someone's hand. No elaborate rituals, no academic posturing, raw, immediate insight. But here's the kicker. Both methods consistently lead to strikingly accurate perceptions of people, different cultures, languages, and educational backgrounds, same kind of extraordinary insight. This pattern, for Annie Wang, raises a big question. Maybe intuition isn't just personal cue or individual talent. Maybe it's something structural, and deepened by symbols and stories passed down generation after generation. Now, Annie Wang ties this back to the I Ching, a classic Chinese text full of symbols, imagery, and encoded wisdom. Around all this are layers of anthropology, early Chinese history, a bunch of references to shamanism. The big claim, and remember, I'm not endorsing it here, is that interacting with ancient symbols might train the mind, not just to memorize facts, but to see at a different level. Are these symbols tools for thinking, or ways to unlock something deeper that's been there all along? Big food for thought, right? There's a super interesting moment when Annie Wang points out that, despite language barriers, like her mother not fluent in US, the same types of intuitive insights still keep happening, suggesting maybe that symbolic thinking and intuition aren't limited by words or even by cultural filters. The paper even digs into interpret authority. There's a debate about who first identified a certain I Ching hexagram as referring to a solar eclipse, a tiny detail on the surface, but it opens up a conversation about who gets credit for ideas and how cultural and linguistic distance shapes recognition. You could go down a deep rabbit hole here, honestly. Intellectual property, cultural influence, all that. Okay, this might be, but thinking about intuition reminds me of when Mai used to claim she just knew when was to rain. No weather report, no fancy data. That in her eyes, was it intuition or years of picking up on the subtle cues? Anyway, maybe there's a bit of that at play here, some sort of intergenerational knowing that just keeps surfacing. Crucially, Annie Wang isn't saying we should throw out rational thinking in favour of intuition, or that one is better. In fact, findings point to a blend, a sort of living cognitive framework where ancient are constantly reinterpreted, not just repeated. For me, for listening, maybe that's the takeaway. What we inherit isn't static. It's dialogue across language and even continents. Remember, academic research offers us angles, frameworks, and possibilities. It's never final word or absolute truth, and I'm not here to promote one method of knowing over another, but exploring how our intuition is shaped by our families and the symbols we absorb, well, That seems incredibly human. That wraps up today's exploration on depth with academia. Thanks letting me Annie's work with you. Whether you've ever cracked open I Ching not, I hope you come away thinking a little differently about how you know what you know. See you next time. Until then, keep those questions coming and stay curious.